Hello, this is Ryan Jacobson with 2A Armament, and this is a basic overview of both of our BL rails and our SR rails. I'm going to go over what you get, and we'll also do an installation. Alright, when you purchase your BL rail or SR rail, it's going to come in a box like this. Now this is a 15-inch key mod. Most of our rails come in both key mod and M-lock. So let's open this guy up, see what we got. When you open up the rail, you're going to find that you get the rail as well as some instructions. These instructions are fairly thorough. You're going to want to make sure that you do go through them first. The installation is not complicated, but it is different from what's out there. So I'd encourage you to read the instructions fully through before you start your installation. This is our 15-inch key mod. As you can see, it's a BL rail. It's got the inletting on the top, and it's designed for the Balios light set or anything you'd want to get some weight out of. This would be a great rail for you. Alright, when you get your rail, you're going to notice that all four of the nuts, the locking nuts, are actually installed in the rail. 3 of them are going to be out, and one of them is actually going to be in there just slightly to secure the barrel nut for packaging. So you're going to want to turn that out. This is a 3/32 Allen wrench. It doesn't have to come all the way out, just a little ways, and then you'll be able to remove the titanium barrel nut. Now we do offer a aluminum barrel nut as well for those that are looking to save a whole bunch of weight, but the BL rail comes standard with the titanium nut, and the SR rail comes standard with the aluminum nut. So this is the system you're looking at. It's a 4-point system. You've got 4 set screws that essentially interact with this ridge, and as those are pushed in, it forces the rail back into the receiver. It's extremely tight lockup, works very well. It's a very simple installation, and it's very light. Alright, so what is the difference between a BL rail and an SR rail? Well, our BL rail is our Balios light rail, and this was really made to complement our Balios light receiver. So it's got the inletting in the top, it's got the cutouts in the sides, and overall the rail itself is a little bit lighter than our SR rail. SR rail, standard rail. So this was really designed to go with your forged products or the other products on the market that do not have the lightning cuts on the top. So we wanted to offer a rail that would work with everything out there. So they're essentially the exact same rail. The difference is that the BL rail has the lightning cuts on it, and it really is more for a lightweight application. It can be used in any application, but it really is there to complement the Balios light upper. Now, one of the nice features of our rail system is you end up with a nice monolithic look to your build. So you can see that there's no gap. It's almost hard to distinguish where this rail starts and stops across the top. Obviously it's right here. You can see that there's 0 gap in between the upper receiver and the rail. It's imperative that you do have a good upper receiver. The rail does rely on the face of this upper receiver, so you can see it's actually intercepting the upper face here as well as the lower lug here. So you must have a good in-spec premium upper receiver for these to work correctly. Another highlight here is that the rail's nut system actually ends up nice and flush with the outside. So you can see that those 45-degree screws, as they've been installed, this corner has actually sat flush with the outside. So you end up with a nice slim profile. Again, very solid lockup. It's a fairly easy installation, and we'll go over that now. Alright, we're out in the shop. We've got our parts. We've got our BL rail. This is obviously Cerakoted flat dark earth. When you start, make sure you put your port door on first. So I'm going to do that real quick. With the port door, I simply start the rod. You remove the E-clip like I did earlier there. Take your port door, take your spring, lay it in place, rotate that spring 180, and then I just like to push down on something to get that started. Now that it's started, I can seat it and check that it closes. Alright, the next thing you're going to want to do is seat your barrel. This is a 10.5 inch barrel. We're going to be doing a SBR, a pistol upper. So you're going to want to rotate that in. If it gets tight there, I simply push down on it on the bench so it's seated, and make sure that that flange ends up snugged up against the face of the upper receiver. Alright, I use one of these standard clamshells for installation. It's worked very well for me. They fit our Balios light upper very well. I like to use a piece of foam like this to protect the finish, and I simply wrap it around the front just like that. Make sure that it's not overlapping in the front where you're going to be working. Then I just set it in, get it clamped in, and check the front. Make sure the face is good. We got something good to work with, so we'll go to our vise. Alright, now that you got your barrel in, we're going to want to apply some sort of lubricant to the threads on the barrel nut. You can use Aeroshell if you want a mil-spec install, or even something like this anti-seize, high-temp anti-seize, if that's what you got around the house. You just need some sort of lubricant on these threads to do a proper install. I'm going to slide the barrel nut over the barrel, engage the threads, and get it started on the threads, and turn it on by hand. If you have an upper like this that's been Cerakoted, you may have a little bit more resistance than normal. That's alright. And now we've got our barrel nut seated by hand. Alright, now we're ready to tighten this down. A note on our barrel nuts. An armor's wrench, like the Magpul wrench, it fits it. It doesn't fit it great. That's not because of the Magpul wrench, that's because of the design of our barrel nut. It's a little bit slimmer than a standard cogged nut. You can use it to do initial torque, come off of it a couple times, but what I like to use is a crow's foot and a torque wrench. Something like this. So you've got your crow's foot, and we've got our snap-on torque wrench, and I'm going to actually use that to torque this down. Now this is a 1 5/16 crow's foot, and I've got this wrench set at 30 foot-pounds. I know that that's the minimum. 30 to 80 foot-pounds is the range. So I'm going to go with this until I get my click. I know I've met minimum, and I'm going to keep going until this groove is lined up with the hole. Alright, once you're done with your barrel nut, you can install your gas block, your gas tube, and your muzzle device, and then we'll move on to the rail installation. You'll see that the gas tube sits in that channel and simply starts in the clover leaf and slides on. We now know that that's seated correctly, and we can install our muzzle device. Alright, at this point in time I've got my upper receiver assembled as far as the gas tube, the gas block, and the compensator, and we're ready to put our rail on. Simply take the rail, slide it over, and seat it up against the upper receiver like that. You want to make sure that there's no gap here. You also want to make sure you do not use any barrel shims. If you use barrel shims, it will take the spec, move it out, and the BL rail will not install properly. Now we're ready to tighten this down. Alright, one of the things I use to help align this rail is this old scope riser. You can use an optic, a scope ring, anything that you can find to align this and help you get everything just lined up. You don't have to use one, it helps. I would recommend it. I'm going to go ahead and get this installed. And you just want to lightly install it. It does not have to be on there very heavy at all. I really don't give it any kind of torque. You can check this gap here and this gap here and make sure that everything's lined up. Now we're ready to do our screws. So we're going to start at the bottom. I take my Allen wrench and I'm going to run this first screw in until I feel resistance on the bottom. And it should be right about where this first edge here ends up flush with the outside. And I can tell that it's now seated on that nut. And now I'm going to go to the next one. Remember, we're doing the bottoms first. Okay. At this point, I'm going to actually manipulate these screws to center the barrel. So I'm going to start on the left here. And as I tighten this down, I can actually watch the barrel move left and right. And what we're going to do is move back and forth on this upper, and we're going to center this rail on this barrel until these screws are tight. Now they do not have to be super tight. You're putting a massive amount of force on this rail. So that's about tight right there on this side. I can see that my barrel's fairly lined up. I'm going to do the same on this side. Back to this one and check it. Alright, we got our bottom nuts tightened now, and our top nuts are snug. And we're going to do the exact same thing on the top nuts that we did with the bottom. So I'm going to take this and give it some force and just watch the barrel. You won't see as much movement. You might see just a tiny bit, but the concept is the same. Once I've done that, I'm going to move back down to my lower nuts, and I'm going to check them for tightness as well. So now we're just going to kind of go back and forth, much like you would on a rim of a car, and just go top to bottom, left to right, and make sure all these are snug. Again, you can see I'm just putting a little bit of force on these. It really doesn't take a whole lot. You do not want to wrench down on them. Once that's done, we can remove our alignment tool if you used one. So I'm going to take this this rail section off and check my work. Alright, finishing up here, what I look for is just overall straightness of the rail. You can see that it's got that nice monolithic look. Everything's lined up nice. The rail is tight, and our barrel is nice and centered. Now this is our 10-inch rail on a 10.5-inch barrel. You can see that there's plenty of room for a suppressor, and that completes the overall install of a BL rail. Alright, if you have any questions, be sure to either give us a call. Our number here is 208-344-5465, or you can send us an email to support@2a-arms.com. And a lot of the specs for these rails are also available on our website. Thank you.